Welcome back to This is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me, I have Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, as well as Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office in Off. Yemi, it's good to see you again this week. Well, very quickly, we've had three major subjects. The state of the economy after the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Second, Pesero, who's a Pesero, not having his contract renewed, and the state of football and other sports in Nigeria, which Chief Segun Odegbami. And then third, the 11 justices now, on the Supreme Court bench, giving us the full complement, the constitutional requirement of 21 justices on the apex court. What are the implications? Would that bring something big in terms of jurisprudence, in terms of the quality of the delivery of justice? Yemi, let me start with you.
Right. Economic policy. I'll leave that one to Professor Kila. But I think at the end of the day, Nigerians don't really care about numbers and percentages. They just want to have food. As the cry last week was, they've been power, we're hungry. And we've seen that in, I think, Abuja this morning. NEMA's office was, what's the English word? Was attack. I don't want to use the word attack, but people basically stormed. People basically went there to get supplies that are set aside for emergencies, but again, they decided their own state of affairs was an emergency. And I think it's not just about talking about it. It's really just Nigerians understanding that government is doing deliberate things. And there's the policy part of it, but there's also the comms part of it. And it's beyond the president speaking and issuing statements. It's also just clarity around the people who are in charge and what they're talking about. There was some, I think, between yesterday and today, the Minister of Finance is suggesting that they move the ministry or the engagement of social, what's it called? Social... Humanitarian. Yeah, humanitarian affairs moves to his own ministry, so they're better monitoring and things of that nature. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. On football, I think that the statement that I like is we keep doing this yo-yo thing. We lose a match, we fire a coach. We lose a match, we fire a coach. We lose a match, we fire a coach. As if lack of planning is the coach's problem. And we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. Again, the Nigerian conundrum. But I think what I do agree with Mr. Odegbami with is the fact that football... Chief Odegbami. Right. That what I do agree is that football consistently shows the power to unite. And so you will think that for a country that has so many fractures, that would actually invest in ensuring that we're building talent, we're raising talent that stays within the country. I mean, the South African one was very funny, the keeper being a Nigerian. But again, as you mentioned, the master plan, again, doesn't continue through administration. It's just, again, seriousness. I mean, from one topic to another is just a failure of leadership and a failure of putting Nigerians, making them priority. And what was the last thing? Supreme Court justices. I think it's good, as Mr. Shitu SAN said, that the docket is full, you now have more people to look at cases. But even the process of our judiciary that allows so many cases to get to the Supreme Court that don't need to be there. In the US, for example, where we borrowed our presidential system from, the only cases that get to the Supreme Court are sort of fundamental constitutional cases, like thinking cases, not is this land yours?
It's a policy court.
Yes. Thank you. That's the English word I was looking for. It's a policy court.
Not an administrative.
Not an administrative. Thank you very much. But we've turned it in Nigeria into an administrative court. So yes, we have 11 more full complement, yada. There's also the issue of the qualifications of the people that go into the Supreme Court and what that looks like. And also the Supreme Court's, the Chief Justice of the country as well, and the example he's showing by trying to make the judiciary a family business. So you have just very different pockets of issues.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's alleged to, daughter or cousin or son or whatever. I lost track of how many people in his family he's trying to put in the Supreme Court. So, I mean, and as someone was saying, there have been a bit of protest. But again, if my friends and I call it just the anyhowness of just doing anyhow. Like, you're the Chief Justice of the country. Do optics not matter? Like, is that not a word you understand? That this will not look good. Let me not do it. But anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Well, but these are qualified persons also, if you look at their profiles.
But there is an issue with nepotism.
Professor Kila?
No, Doctor, no, before you speak, but let's also be very clear. I'm not talking about if they're not qualified or not, but are there not other qualified? Does it have to be your daughter? Let's be very clear. I don't even know her qualifications, so I don't know if she's qualified, if she failed out of law school, got a 2-1, 3-1 first class. That's actually not my concern. Oh. My concern is, in this country, where we have clear issues of conflict of interest, clear issues of corruption, must your daughter work in the same office as you do? And when I mean office, I mean that generally as a judiciary.
Okay, I can explain parts of that, but we don't have time.
Okay, good.
Professor Kila.
Well, we don't have time, but I think we have enough time to say optics matter.
Thank you.
Those who went to good schools will know that when you're the son of a teacher, you have to work harder, because the teacher will not want you to appear.
These 11 justices that have gone to the apex bench.
Yes.
There's nobody amongst them that is related to the
No, we're just
CJN.
I think he's talking generally. I mean, there are viewers, our viewers will know that in the country, there's been some nominations generally in the judiciary that has a sort of a tree of the family of the wise one, the family of a factory of producing judges in the country all of a sudden. That is not a good thing as optics. As I was saying, if you went to a good school, you will know that when you're the child of a teacher, you have to work harder than any other person to be recognized and to get positions. And I think it is good optics that in a country of 200 million people, anytime somebody from one family gets something, another person from that family to get something similar, to pick a fruit from that tree, should actually be so fantastic that people should not be able to protest. We should put the hurdle for them to say, since one person is your family is there, let's try other people. I think, it's just a sense of fairness and decency. This is why aesthetics and ethics go together to form a good optics. We should look at it that way. And I also believe, and I say this as somebody who has studied law but has not practiced law, that for those who revere the law, not only in substance but also in appearance, I think those who aspire to the bench should be known years before. We should have an idea that these are likely candidates, so there will be no shocks. And I think the bar, the bench, and the academia should work together to create some profiles and comments that will make us see that this is a Supreme Court in waiting. Why? Because he or she has done some cases, some pronouncements, written some reports. And even some good communication skills. And I dare say, even the way they appear, that will make you know that this is a Supreme Court judge in waiting. I say that because of my love for the law. Amiku Kurias, I think, is the expression for that. And if we lose that, we lose a lot of things. But that is where we are. In terms of the economy, I think that there's too much pressure on the CBN. The role of the central bank is a very limited role in a system that works. Exactly, monetary policy. I understand that because of the importance of dollar, of forex in our economy, because we import than we produce, we import more than we consume, or better still, most of what we consume are imported. That brings the central bank to the central part of our economy. I think that's too much. Where we are now, we need to really get our fiscal policy right. That is where I think emphasis should be. And by that, I mean two things. We need a very clear direction, which can be done by the Minister of Economy, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Trade, that will then lead the other ministries, including agriculture, aviation, and every other person, to say, for example, what we need is to create job and wealth. What we need, therefore, is to make sure that we're building, we're employing people, and above all, we're reducing the price of prices. We're going to go to labor at some point. These are an unpopular thing. I am not for increasing wages. I don't want more money in people's hands. I want the money in our hands to be valuable. Let the prices go down. And the way to do that is supply-side economy. The other thing we need, clearly, we need forex inside our economy. I argue that the good economic policies, and the policies that sit down and say, how do we face our deficits, which are infrastructural, which are human development, which is of production? How do we do that without going bankrupt? We don't have money. So what do? We need to find ways to generate that money to come in. We do it by private partnership. We do it by putting some of our assets in the market. Let us go to London and to New York, to the stock exchange in those countries, and put some of our assets there. Not sell everything, beef it up and get people to invest in it so that money will be coming in. Let us take our expanse of lands across the country from Zamfara to Ekiti is a small place. Well, I'm not a good example, but that's a small place, but you know, my passion. Zamfara to Ondo to everywhere that is big, and get countries, deserts, get investors to come and build factories there. They will bring in money, they would also employ people, and they will increase our production. Of course, to do that, you need to take care of security. And you then need certainty of the law. You cannot do that in a situation where you make one law today and you change it tomorrow. We need to really sit down and think of what we need to do. And we need to divide this solution into three: immediate, mid-term, and long-term. Long-term, I dare say, should be 4 years. You know, this 8 years project is good, is necessary, but politicians, you know, they're elected for 4 years. And they should, most of their plans should be for 4 years. I know people who say, you can't do a lot. You can actually do a lot. In 2024, with digitalization and everything. So we need a rethink and a very clear thought on how to solve our problem. Our problem now is scarcity and uncertainty and deficiency. Scarcity of food, scarcity of infrastructure, scarcity of job. How do we deal with that? Make investments come in geared towards capital production. Football, it is true that football unites, but you know, there's a secret that people are not mentioning, an elephant in the room. One of the reasons, while everybody can see, even the blind can see that football unites Nigeria, I dare say there's a mischief reason behind why politicians are not taking it serious. They don't want Nigerians' unity. Because divided we stand, that is the way they're able to govern us. If Nigerians all of a sudden become more than 90 minutes, more than a tournament, truly united, they will see through the ethnic, religious, and this and that division, and politicians will become redundant. Because too many of them are there through zoning, not merit, not some antecedents that sees them as capable of managing our Commonwealth. That is the problem. My advice is that we need to look at football as a business. We need to imagine that government is not alive. And let us see how we can see a market of over 500 million people that can pay $1 to be involved in that market and then galvanize it. Chief Olegbami is right. The pitch matters, but it is not enough. It's a sine qua non to move forward. You need good pitch, you need good footballers, you need remuneration, you need the packaging, you need the optics to see that this football matters, to make it something that can be watched. You need good cameras. One of the reasons why AFCON was good was that go and watch Enyiba, my own team. Everybody talks about their EPL. I am a full supporter of stationary stores. Go and watch the way that football is covered. I'm one of those people who have stayed for over 5 decades behind one football club. I just enjoy Arsenal and Manchester. My heart is with superstars. We need elites who can say that, who can belong to that, and then put our money into it. Let the big corporations start sponsoring Nigerian football. Let them force arise to talk about Nigerian football once in a while. NTA, they shouldn't be forced. If they don't do that, they should be fired. Other people, let them focus on that. That is the way to make it up.
For example, I mean, Glo did for many years, for example.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, I will begin with the economy and then link it to football, because they are more related than the average person, you know, would think. The economy, yes, is good. The CBN, the committee has met, important decisions taken. That is fine, but I personally do not agree with the decision to increase the interest rate, 22.75%. When you take a loan at that rate, how are you going to sell what you produce? Like we always say, the person say cocaine, you know, just sarcastically. And in this economy, global economy that is truly global and integrated, where goods and services move across boundaries, if somebody borrows at 22.75%, can he compete? So I do not agree that interest rates should increase. There are countries where it is just 2%, 3%. We are at 22.75%. I think it's too high. I think when the committee meets again, there's need to take a look at that. That if we are really looking at the real sector, it's not just in rhetoric, just talking. These are issues that need to be addressed. The rate is too high, and the committee needs to look at it in its next meeting. not raising. At the best case scenario, just leave it where it is and not raise it. It's already too high. We can't.
They took an accommodative stance for quite a number of times.
Yes, I know, but the reality is that the investors will borrow at that, whatever the influence.
But Prof, there's a logic for what they're doing. You see, there's a logic for it. The idea is that they need to curtail the supply of money.
Reduce
the supply, the amount of money circulation.
Yes.
But the premises is faulty. That's the problem. You see,
they want to tame inflation.
Yes.
They want to
tame inflation, and then you make it impossible for those who will produce. I mean, it's a conundrum, but
it is.
Like I said, they could have left it where it is instead of increasing it. Anyway, then the CBN talking about bringing some activities in the humanitarian ministry under its supervision. I don't think that is necessary. Just like Professor Kila said, monetary policy is what the CBN should be for, not distributing money to poor people and all that.
It wasn't CBN, it was Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance, rather, you know, all of those things. I mean, they should focus on the economy as it is and leave that to the ministry. You should look for a competent, honest person who will run that place and let the poor get what, you know, is meant for them from that ministry, not transfer responsibility, assuming that they...
let them not give money again. These honest people, they become dishonest.
Just to your point as well, the whole issue of a cashless system that we've been trying to push since SLS was EMIR. Now, I mean, well, not EMIR, sorry, was CBN governor. It's also this thing about...
badly, but go ahead.
No, my point is that it's also your point about policy.
Yes.
So we started it on SLS. Lagos started pioneered that. Then we tied it to elections last year.
Yes.
So there's also a distrust of the system. Absolutely. Now, if you're trying to give people cash, and what this administration has decided to do is give physical cash.
Yes.
But there are too many platforms to transfer money to people.
Why give it out cash?
What Mr. Wale Enua said is that, you know, they're going to insist that people must have BVN and NIN, and that the poor and the underprivileged that are being targeted, that this will be the money will be disbursed through electronic means.
But it started under Miriam Uwais, under the Buhari administration. So you take that, they removed her, started scuttling it, and by the time we got to this administration, now became a full-blown cash and sign. So it's again back to the policy, the issue of policy consistency. Exactly.
Certainty.
And just an honesty of purpose that we still don't have.
It's because the vision is not clear, and it's happening.
Well, so that needs to be, you know, they should leave it as it is, and then, you know, empower the ministry, give all the necessary infrastructure required for these things to be carried out honestly. That is my thoughts on that. And then generally the economy needs to do better. Professor Kila just mentioned the things you need, the investors coming and all that. Have you noticed that power has been almost totally non-existent in the past 3 weeks? Almost non-existent. And we speak of industrialization. Why will it happen? How will it happen?
At what cost?
So there are issues that are fundamental that need to be addressed. That if they are not addressed, somebody says dollar is shy. It doesn't go to work and not reproduce itself. You know, yes. You need to, if these things are not in place, we can talk from here. We can junket everywhere, all over the one or two countries and all that. Nobody will come. So the things that need to be done for investors to come need to be put in place and all that. And of course, it cuts across even agriculture. I mean, news agency from Nigeria just reported that Ukraine is giving Nigeria 25,000 tons of wheat. A country at war is giving us, you know, these are the things. How come we have not been able to maximize our potentials in at least agriculture?
Football, so, you're going to tie economy to football?
Yes, I'm coming. And then football, let me just come to football. Yes, I mean, there is business dimension to it. And I say I will tie it to it because the general economic environment is a huge factor in how football develops. When I went to South Africa the other time to support Super Eagles and watch the Nations Cup, I also try to understand how their own league and the football association functions. And I discovered that the overall economy is a critical issue. The football team is not, government does not give money to it. Because the economy is fairly okay, the companies and it goes smoothly. People go and watch matches in Nigeria because the poverty rate is high, the insecurity is extensive. People don't go to watch, and these are the things that where they generate income from to make the whole package good. So there's a whole lot that needs to change for all of these to take. Of course, Pesero Well, Pizarro, I think in the final he got the tactics wrong, and that's why Nigeria lost. I don't also think that he knew the Nigerian footballers enough, and all that. So whether they sack him, well, it's 50-50 really. I'm not as critical of him as Chief Odegbami. Yes, I heard what he said after we lost. After Nigeria, I mean, he was very, very scathing in his comments. I think in that final, first the selection was not appropriate. He put some players that we don't understand why he brought them, and it was very glaring that the feelings of these players was critical to Nigeria's loss. But he's gone. We hope Nigeria will be more perceptive in selecting a new coach that will be able to, get.
Bro, I think the guy was lucky, and I think the next time we want to employ a coach, let's look at their credentials, but also their luck. Because all those little things, you will be shocked that it matters. Because the guy got lucky. I mean, he didn't show any. Yeah, he didn't show any reason to be a coach that will get to the final. But all of a sudden, he was there. And every day, including those who died, every day people were almost dying.
Became higher and higher.
And every match was a tough match. We didn't go confidently and played brilliantly to win any match. So I think moving forward, we should think about coaches. But allow me less than a minute to say one thing. If we want to follow the Odegbami route, which he didn't say clearly, but I've read him elsewhere, he's for having national coaches. If we want to do that, we don't have to improvise. We need to invest in it. We need to all of a sudden say, we're going to build an academy of coaches, of Nigerian coaches.
We have to be intentional.
We have to be intentional so that our retired footballers...
It's the National Institute of Sports.
No, coaches, not only for Nigerians, but also international players. You don't need a lot of infrastructure to do that. You need a classroom and a pitch. Let them go to Ota, even Odegbami's academy or Professor Aworawo's backyard. Just set up something there and start training coaches to say, out of these people, we shall have coaches for Nigeria and export them for the rest of the world.
Well, on the justices.
Sorry, let me just make a point on the justices.
Yes.
A great deal of all the issues have been addressed, but the aspect I want to draw attention to, I don't quite agree with Shitu that all of them are trusted and tested, and I don't quite agree with that. I mean, issues have been raised that I think are legitimate against some of them, but beyond that, they need to stick to the law in the way they carry out their activities. That needs to be emphasized.
Telling their lordship to stick to the law. What else do they
need to? Well, now, let me just give you an example.
Go ahead.
In Plateau, we have a governor who is governor because the case went to the Supreme Court. We have senators, we have members of the House of Assembly, we have members of the House of Reps who will have been there, but for some mistakes made by members of the appeal court. And that is the last court for the rest. Yeah. The governor was lucky because his own case could go to the Supreme Court. So it is very critical. And you see what the Supreme Court justices say. They lampooned those who took the decision at the appeal court. That they behave as if they didn't understand the law. Yeah. So when I say they should stick to the law, I'm saying that advisedly. That beyond everything else, they should stick to the law so that people can get justice from the courts.
No, but just to reiterate what Professor Aworawo said, it's the same thing we did when we were talking about elections. Akpabio, our current Senate president, has no business being in the Senate, according to the law. But it was...
Okay,
anyway.
Let's take a subject of global politics. Aid groups and protesters have criticized the U.S. effort as ineffective, while its ally Israel continues to obstruct the bulk of aid deliveries. Protesters demanding a ceasefire in Gaza dismiss a U.S. airdrop of humanitarian aid on the war-ravaged territory, saying the Biden administration should stop supplying military weaponry to Israel. The protesters who gathered outside of Israel's embassy in Washington, D.C., also paid tribute to U.S. airman Aaron Bushnell, who died after he set himself on fire at the embassy in protest at Israel's bombing of Gaza. The United States military carried out its first airdrop of humanitarian aid into Gaza on Saturday, U.S. officials said, as aid agencies warned of a growing humanitarian disaster in the Palestinian enclave as Israel pressed on with its 5-month-old offensive. Well, 3 different things packed into that narrative. Yeah. First, the heroism of Aaron Bushnell, the airman who engaged in an act of self-immolation in protest. Second, the killing of Palestinians in Gaza, while, you know, humanitarian aid was being provided for them. And the argument by the U.S. by the Israeli defense chief is that, well, they needed to protect. There was a threat to Israeli soldiers, and people thought the killing, the massacre of over 100 persons, you know, could not be justified. And then, of course, the third one is America now dropping humanitarian aid, and they started that yesterday. Basically, food packets, you know, airdropped, you know, since yesterday, and they said it will continue. Let's start with you, Professor Aworawo.
Well, I won't condemn the dropping of food just because anything that the people of Gaza need now that can keep them alive, you know, it makes sense. But, of course, I vehemently condemn U.S. support for the indiscriminate killing in Gaza, which has continued unabated. How can people be queuing for humanitarian aid and they are just shot down? Over 100 killed. How else how else is genocide to be defined than that? You know, people talk about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is just a set of activities which reflect intolerance, hatred, this time for the Jews. But when the Jews do the same to others, should it be of less importance? So people have spoken and spoken and spoken. Unfortunately, might is right. You know, might has been right all through in the way the Israelis have gone on to conduct this thing in Gaza. But we still continue to appeal. It is never too late to do what is right. The way they have gone about, you know, prosecuting this war against Hamas is not the way terrorism is fought. Terrorism, you identify, you know, and then take them out. You take measures to avoid collateral damage. But what the Israelis have, you know, tried to do is, if they see one Gaza in any, they suspect, not even see, they are ready to kill 10,000 to just get rid of that one. That is not how terrorism, we all know how counter-terrorism strategy is. What Israelis are doing, it defies all logic in the way terrorism is fought. It's never too late for them to make a retraction, but they should also allow aid so that those who are in critical condition can get something to sustain themselves.
Professor Kila?
It's politics of power. The German expression for it is a match politics, you know, the politics of power. And that is what's going on. I think where we are now, we should just go and beg Israel. Just say, please, let them breathe. Because clearly, if the US cannot talk to them, UN cannot talk to them, nobody can actually stop them from doing whatever they want to do. I think they're doing whatever they're doing because they can. Yeah. That is where we are now. So when you deal with people who can do what they can, we have to apply the Yoruba sense and say beg. Just say, please don't kill the people. That is where we are.
I mean, I think that, and also just really focusing on the allies. The America dropping food packets for me is just one of the very few actions that the U.S. government has taken to show that they actually consider Palestinians humans as well in this war. And that I hope that's a strong enough message, or adds to the strength of the messaging that Israeli is receiving, if America is now supporting or is now interested in keeping Palestinians alive.
He will send a message. Yeah. And he also has domestic policy indication. We doesn't have time
for that. It's an election year.
It's an election year. Part of why they're doing it is to balance what is going on in America so that they can say, we have tried, at least we've done this. But it's an indictment of the international order.
Indeed.
Yeah, sure.
Indeed.
Certainly.
Indeed.
Most certainly. Well, let's take another domestic subject. The Nigeria Labour Congress last week suspended its two-day nationwide protest, having given a deadline of March 13 to the federal government to act on its demands or risk a recourse to another strike action. The workers' union had embarked on the two-day mass protest from February 27th through the 28th over economic hardship confronting millions of Nigerians since the removal of petrol subsidy in May 2023. Both the NLC and the Trade Union Congress had on February 8 given a 14-day ultimatum to the federal government. In the meantime, the Nigerian Labour Congress says it is not after President Tinubu's job and asked him to focus on governance rather than politicking. This came less than 24 hours after the president took a swipe at the Labour Congress for embarking on a protest 9 months into his administration, terming it unfair and unacceptable. Tinubu spoke in Lagos last Thursday at the unveiling of the Lagos Red Rail Line project. He lashed out at the Labour leaders, saying they were not the only voices of Nigerians. He also told labor leaders who participated who wanted to participate in the electoral process to wait till 2027. Yemi Adamolekun. President Tinubu advising labor to wait till 2027 and not just be protesting.
Actually, I wanted to do some research on his statements in 2011 and what other year do we have? 2007. APC came into power 2015, yeah. Just to see as opposition what his posture was when PDP was in power. But I think more fundamentally is my concern with labor and their, I guess maybe their inability to read the room. Like, you're dealing with people that have spent quite a bit of time in opposition. If anybody understands the protest game, it's an APC government. 1993, all the way up to 2012 as two significant markers of the role that that party has played in protests in this country. So if you want to come at them with protests, you need to come correct. All this dilly-dallying, come one day, then you say you postpone, then go and say they are threatening you. What do you expect them to do? Not threaten you, invite you to a tea party with biscuits and tea. So, I mean, Labour, unfortunately, I think in their actions and in their engagement, one of the things that I like that Ajero said on this show, I think it was a morning show, was to say that categorically he can say that under his own watch, that Labour has not received money. Yeah. And maybe we can see that in the way the government is kind of talking to them. And so maybe that is a good thing. So if you are clear about that posture and that's the way you want to engage, then go the full hog and know that you are protesting and you are truly working in the interest of the people. Because ultimately, we're still trying to do protest under control. Call off, call on, call off, call on. Where we are going, nobody's going to be calling off nada. Nigerians will just say, we are here. Let's all be all right.
Well, I think the social-economic context has redefined the way people are defined. We're used to saying somebody is a wolf in sheep's clothes. I think in this case, Joe Ajero is a sheep in wolf's clothes because the situation does not allow him to do what he would like to do. It is because people are too tired, too frustrated, and too disorganized. And as you rightly say, the other side is stronger. Let's see how it goes. I do not think Labour can lead the way out of people's voice. Labour is just one of the pillars. I think this is going to be something that will come from the society in itself, unless the government finds a solution.
Yeah, I don't think, the last protest, I think Labour should have just go the whole hog, conclude, instead of, truncating the thing midway and say, oh, in another couple of weeks, I will come back. That would have been more dignifying for Labour. But I think Labour has tried. I don't see Labour in that negative light because the government simply forgot about the poor in its, all its activities from when it started.
I don't think so, Prof. The government has not forgotten about the poor.
It did.
They don't
the
care.
government talks about the poor every day.
Yes.
The government it's just their solution is ineffective.
It did. You know what I said it did?
Yes.
Those nationals, they will go around 60 million car. Are they spirits?
But he said
they forgot the poor.
No, they did not forget. They don't care. It's very different.
Well,
if you are talking about them, means remember them. Just don't care.
In the protest before this one, they compare government, okay, they will pay 25,000 to workers for 6 months. Labour said no. Then back and forth, they increased to 35,000. Government was not paying. Exactly. It is this strike that government has paid all. Yeah. Only one month. Yes! Yeah. In this 35,000, what is that? But at least government has paid. So the point I'm making is that Labour's activities are not as fruitless. But the rest of us in society need to join in this activity. Because it's not only workers that make up if they pay their 35,000, what about the rest of Nigerians? Yeah. Who is fighting for them?
But I think
so. Yemi, pro-democracy people,
but I
they are not ready. They should be ready.
That's the point, Prof. You see, that is what we need to do because we live in an economy of hand to mouth. Yeah. Protest is not a very popular thing now.
It's expensive.
It's expensive for people. They can't afford it. Yeah. I think Labour needs to up his game. That is why they need to go from a sheep in wolf's clothing to something more strategic. Labour needs to be more engaging.
Labour is for workers. What about the rest of Nigerians?
Because
who is fighting for them?
Because they're not selling a cause that resonates. Because all you're saying is you now said, okay, increase minimum wage. Increase it to what?
To 1 million naira.
That again is for workers.
So you want us to join them to be advocating what then?
For everybody, yes.
On that note, thank you very much, Yemi Adamolekun. Thank you, Professor Anthony Kila. Thank you very much, Professor David Aworawo. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from my entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.